Hello and welcome to this presentation on the effective use of EdTech to support learning. My name is Mr. Walmsley and I am the Educational Technology or EdTech Coordinator here at Wildern. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to talk through what actually EdTech is, the benefits it can have for our students and their learning, and how we both use it within the classroom and also how students are using it outside the classroom. So to start with then, what actually is EdTech? So EdTech, or short for Educational Technology, refers to the new technological implementations in the teaching and learning, both within the classroom and also outside the classroom. So what actually are the benefits to educational technology? There are several different benefits, but these are sort of the key ones that I think are the most relevant. Now, obviously, we want our students to be as engaged in their learning as possible, and certain pieces of educational technology can really help to boost that engagement. Recently, we've just had some interactive screens placed in the language department and the maths department, and there are certain ways that they can be used in those subjects with specific apps that can increase that in student engagement, which I will go into more detail a bit later. But also, educational technology can help students to retain information. Certain pieces of software that are either web-based or there are apps that students can use are things like Memrise, Sparks Maths, Duolingo for the languages department. Those are all educational technology softwares that have been designed to help students to not only progress but also to retain the information that they have learnt within their lessons. The second point, educational technology also encourages collaboration with our students, whether that's through their project work or group work within lessons. The main way that we can do that at Wildern is using the Google Workspace. Now, the Google Workspace is the Google version of sort of Microsoft Office. So you might be used to sort of things like Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, and Microsoft Excel. What we use at Wildern instead is Google Slides, Google Docs, and Google Sheets. The benefits of using the Google versions is that when students create these documents, they can really quickly, at the click of a button, just share it with some peers in their class via their school emails. And then once those emails have been opened and the document has been shared, all the students need to do is they can open up the document or the sheet or the presentation, whatever it is they're working on, and they can all contribute and all work on this live document at the same time. So there's no more of these students having to make these documents, then send it to one student for them to add one bit, and then it has to be saved and then send it to another. The Google Workspace allows them to work on it all at the same time, and it auto saves all the time, so it's not a case of they've done hours upon hours of work and then the classic thing of they haven't saved it. It all auto saves. It's a fantastic way for students to actually collaborate and work together. The other way that the Google Workspace is used is that teachers are able to provide instant feedback to students, helping them to progress and improve. So yes, students can share their work with each other and help each other, but also they can share it with us as teachers, and we can open those documents and we can actually go on them at the same time as the students, and we can add comments in, highlight certain bits that maybe they need to rethink about, or if they've made spelling mistakes, so we can give live feedback on their digital work in the same way that we do in the classroom with their books, right, going round. We can do that on these virtual documents as well. And the last one, probably the most important for me in my opinion, is that educational technology prepares students for their future after Wildern. I think we've all realised over the sort of last couple of years of where we've come from through COVID that technology has been a fundamental part of us sort of getting through the world of work, Zoom calls and things like that, but also with our students being at home learning remotely as well. And when these students eventually are going to leave Wildern, they are going to go into the big wide world, whether that's college or apprenticeship, and eventually the world of work. And this educational technology that they're being exposed to within their studies at the moment is helping them with their future as they go on. So now what I'd like to do is then just take you through some of the pieces of software that we use within school itself, just to give you an idea of how this educational technology is being used. So the first main one that you probably have heard of is our use of CHROMEBOOKS. So all students at Wildern have access to CHROMEBOOKS within lessons. Our Key Stage 4 classes, so that's year 9, 10 and 11, they have the opportunity to bring in their own devices and use those within lessons. That doesn't mean that year 7 and 8 don't have access to these. We have a large stock of Chromebooks within the school that teachers can book at any point for their lessons. So it's not just for the older year groups that these Chromebooks are for. Now, what actually is a Chromebook? So a Chromebook is a device that uses the Google Workspace. In the top right hand corner there, you can see a picture of a Chromebook. It looks very similar to a laptop. Essentially, it is very similar to a laptop, but it doesn't have certain features that a normal laptop would have. It just has access to the internet for our Google Chrome, and then those Google Workspace tools, so Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, and a few other things that are very subject specific. But the benefits to Chromebooks rather than laptops is that Chromebooks can be loaded in under 10 seconds, whereas in comparison to laptops, which can take a few minutes to load, if a Chromebook can be booked by a teacher, they arrive into the lesson very quickly with under 10 seconds, those students can log in and get straight on with what it is that they need to do in their lessons, so they don't lose out on lesson time. Now, in year 9, students have the opportunity to use a Chromebook within their lessons to aid with their learning. That could be used in several different ways. So some students like to make notes on their Chromebooks as well as making notes in their exercise book. Obviously, we don't want our students just to purely work on their Chromebooks, not only for the fact that that's obviously not very good for their eyes, like just staring at a screen all day, but also at the moment that students, when they come to sit their GCSEs in year 11, the majority of them are going to be done via pen and paper. So if students are just working on their Chromebooks and they're just typing all the time, they're not practicing that skill of writing at a certain speed for their exams. But some students do like to make some digital notes as well as their pen and paper notes. Other students like to use them to help them if they're slightly stuck in lessons. Obviously, Chromebooks have internet access on them at all times using the school Wi-Fi. It could be that a student wants to ask a certain question because they're not quite sure on something, and they've noticed that actually the teacher's busy with another student at that time, so they can then use their Chromebook to do a little bit of independent research and maybe look at something like BBC Bite Size, or their specification, or some revision websites to help them in trying to understand what it is they are finding difficult at the moment, or maybe finding a little quick video that they can watch to support them. And the third way that Chromebooks can be used by our students is that the teachers are sharing all of their lesson resources via Google Classroom, and I will come on to Google Classroom a little bit later in the presentation. But if a student has a Chromebook in their lesson, what they can do is not only can they visually see the presentation or the lesson resources the teacher has projected for the whole class. If they're on their Chromebook, the student can then have those resources right in front of them. So if there's something they want to take a little bit more time in, maybe making some extra notes about, or they would just want to reread something that's going to help them with a piece of work they're doing, they have those lesson resources in front of them and they can use those as they see fit. Now, we actually provide a leasing scheme for Chromebooks through an external agency, because unfortunately, with the size of Wildern, we don't have the ability to allow every single student to have a Chromebook via the school. So we, at the start of year 9, we do start a Chromebook scheme. Now, the Chromebook scheme works at the end of year 8 and the start of year 9, you as a parent can purchase a Chromebook. You would pay for that over a 2-year period, and at the end of the scheme you don't have to give the Chromebook back. It's then the students to then keep, and Chromebooks do have a long lifespan. They don't just have a 2-year lifespan, so after those 2 years that Chromebook will still last for a fair few more years, and at that point they'd be going into year 11. They could then use that Chromebook when they go into college or their apprenticeship and further forward from there. The next piece of educational technology software that we use at Wildern a lot is the use of a visualizer. Now, a visualizer is just a camera essentially, but what it does, it allows us as teachers to display text, images, other documents, anything that we want to project onto a much larger scale via a classroom display. So visualizers can be used in many different ways, in a similar way to students using their Chromebooks. So visualizers can be used in lessons for modeling work. It could be that going around the room, a teacher has sort of given a task out. They've then noticed that one student's done a really fantastic piece of work. in order to allow all the class to see this, what they can then do is they can then take the book to the front, they can then set up their visualizer, and they can just quickly project that piece of work so everyone can see it. It could be that the teacher then live marks it with the students. They could highlight what's really fantastic about the piece of work, maybe if there's any spelling, punctuation or grammar that needs to be changed, or actually maybe ask the class some questions about what would you change about this piece of work, what could we do to improve that piece of work. So that's great for sort of live marking. It can also be for modelling work. I'm just thinking of one example myself. Could be in a maths or a science lesson, a teacher's trying to teach the skill of plotting a graph from a set of data, and the teacher could then, rather than tell the students excuse me, how to just complete the graph, they can actually do the graph with the students live, have it under the visualizer, get a piece of graph paper, and they could really show the students the skill of drawing a graph, or it could be writing a paragraph for an essay in English. And by modeling this with the students, it allows them to really see the fundamental skills that they need to maximize their progress within each of their subjects. And then the third piece of sort of educational technology software, this is sort of a very brand new and a really exciting thing that's just come in for Wildern, are interactive screens. Now, at the moment, they are not in every single classroom. They are currently in sort of language classrooms and music classrooms, and also just recently the maths department have had some of these installed. And what these are really fantastic at, what these aren't, is they're not just fancy projectors. They're actually interactive screens themselves. They have the internet built within them. And what each department is able to do is they sort of have an app store like you would expect on sort of any smartphone. Each department can then look on the sort of app store and see what sort of software there is for each department. I know, for example, me being a science teacher, I know that there's software on these devices that can help with writing chemical equations and the periodic table, and it goes into a lot of detail about each element, for example. For maths, for example, it has a graph builder and a construction builder, so the maths teachers are able to use this to really, really help teach some of those fundamental skills that they may have to use a visualizer for, but it's even better because it's software that's designed specifically for that role. As you can see here, this is a picture of a primary school setting, and students can actually come up and use the interactive screens themselves. They're all touch screen. You can write on them as they are a whiteboard, or you can create sort of specific tasks on there, like drag and drop. So it could be a keyword definition. Students can come up to the front and they can move things around on there. So it really increases that engagement of learning within the lesson. And as it says there, software built into the interactive screens means that teachers can use models to further students' understanding. Specific apps will allow those teachers to model certain things that can be sort of quite abstract and difficult for students to understand. So I did mention this a little bit earlier when we talked about Chromebooks, but the Google Workspace. So the Google Workspace, it's a group of tools, and it can be used to create documents through Google Docs. Google Slides can allow students to create presentations. It also has the software to produce websites through Google Sites, and there are many, many others like Google Calendar, Google Email, Google Drive, which is a piece of software where students can store all of their work and they can access it from any device that can connect to the internet. So these tools allow students to create resources either individually or, as I said earlier, they can create them in groups by sharing the documents with each other, sharing them with teachers, so teachers can see what they've been doing and help them and live mark and give feedback, etc., etc. And these tools are designed to regularly save, so there's no risk of work being deleted. So if a student has been working on a piece of work, all they have to do is just come out of the document. If they load it back up again, everything they've done will be there. Nothing would have been deleted, because Google Workspace, any of these pieces of software will automatically save every sort of 2 to 5 seconds, so no work will ever be lost. So those are just some of the ways that EdTech can be used within the classroom. Now, EdTech can also be used outside of the classroom as well, so it's not just restricted for when students are sat in their lessons in front of their teachers. So some of the pieces of software that can be used outside the classroom involves Google Classroom itself, which I'll talk about in a second, and then there are some other app-based or web-based pieces of software that I will talk about. One of them being Seneca, Duolingo, which is a very specific one for the language department, Coggle, and then Canva. There are hundreds upon hundreds of different pieces of softwares. Some of them can be used for all subjects, some of them are just department specific. Obviously I haven't got the time today to go through all of them, but we at Wildern are always looking at trying to embed and use the best pieces of software out there, and as part of my role is about looking at what pieces of software there are out there to maximize our students' learning going forward. So one of the main pieces of software that students will use outside the classroom is Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is used at Wildern to set all self-study. So self-study is the work that we as teachers give for students to do whilst they're not in the classroom. And each student has a Google Classroom for each of their subjects. And what us as teachers will do, so we'll post assignments through Google Classroom with an explanation of what those student needs to do for that assignment, along with any documents and also videos that are going to assist students with their self-study. The fact that we as teachers are able to attach documents means that students don't have to complete their homework on a pen and paper. They can complete them on something like a Google Doc, a Google slide, or a Google Sheet. They can then send it via Google Classroom, and we as teachers have access to that as well. So here is just an example of a student homepage. Here you will see on the screen that in this box it won't say demo class. Here what it will say here is the subject that they're in. Each one has given a 2-letter code. For science, for example, it will end in SC. If it's a maths Google Classroom, it will end in MA. Here you'll have a picture that is associated with the teacher, so if students do forget which teacher that each class is for, this will give them an idea of who it is, and it would also say their name here. And then what you can see is that it tells the students what piece of work is due in. So you can see here on this demo class, due on Monday at 3 o'clock, there is self-study 1, and it's a B1 equation homework. So this is obviously a science piece of self-study. You can see at the top here, then you've got 3 other functions. You have the to-do list, so that is auto-populated. So as soon as a teacher gives an assignment out on the to-do list for the student, they will have that there, so they can use that to really organise themselves and make sure that they're getting their self-study done for the correct date. To review, that is if teachers have given any feedback on a piece of work, the students can click on the to review button and they can see any of that feedback. And then if they would like to plan out their homework maybe for the week or even the month, which would be fantastic, they can click on the calendar and it will break down and show them all the assignments they've got over a longer period of time. So once you then click into a classroom, it comes up with this page. So at the top here, you've got 3 different functions. You've got the stream, the classwork tab, and then the people tab. At the moment, it's highlighted on the stream tab, and this very much works like a social media stream, something like Facebook or Instagram. It's a running commentary of everything that's been posted into this Google Classroom, and all students need to do is just scroll down and they can see every single piece of work, every lesson resource, any announcements, any questions that a teacher has posted into the classroom. Again, you can see on the left hand side here, it tells the students what work is upcoming. So here we can see that we've still got that information about, we've got that self-study due on Monday at 3 o'clock. Here you've got announce something to the class, so this is where the teachers can actually announce something. The students won't actually have this box on there. And then you can see down here we've got 1 piece of work at the moment. So the teacher has posted a new assignment. It gives the name of the assignment, which number it is as well. So all students need to do in order to complete their self-study, they can do this 2 ways. They can click directly onto the stream post itself and it will take them to it, or they can click on the classwork tab and you get a view similar to this one. So what you'll have down the side is a list of all the topics. So teachers will obviously organise their Google Classrooms into specific topics. So you can see here, this one has just got a self-study topic. This is Autumn 1. As the year progresses, teachers will add new topics in, and then the lessons that they do can be posted onto here as well as their self-study. You've then got the Google Calendar and also the Class Drive folder. Students won't need to use the Class Drive folder. That's just where the work has actually been saved onto Google. But the Google Calendar, if they click on that, it will give them a rundown, like I said earlier, of all the assignments that they've got within their Google Classroom. So here we've got a more detailed version of the self-study that this teacher has set. So every single piece of self-study will have some instructions. So this one, complete the attached set of questions either on paper or on a Google Doc. You must have a paper or electronic copy of your work to mark in class. So if students want to do this on paper, that's not a problem. They can just view the document. They can then write it down on pen and paper and bring it into lessons. That's not a problem. Excuse me. But what they can do though is you can see here that they can do it electronically and bring an electronic copy into their lesson via their Chromebook, for example. So all students need to do in order to do electronic copy is just they click on this box here with a Google Doc, and each assignment is specific to each student. So this document is only accessible by the teacher that set it and the student that it's been set for. So there's no risk of one document being set for all students and then other students are overwriting what those students have done for their homework. So students can also click on this, do electronic copy, and it can then be seen by the teacher. Once you then have completed that homework, what the student then needs to make sure they do is it will obviously, when they've done their piece of work, this will be automatically here to start with. That will auto update because Google Docs, Google Slides and Google Presentations, they auto save every 2 to 5 seconds. If a student wants to add anything extra, so if they've maybe done it on a different format, if they've decided to do it in a slides, they've made a presentation for their homework instead, they can then add or create that straight onto this assignment as well. And again, the teacher gets to see it. And then what's really, really important is the students must press the hand in button. If they don't press the hand in button, the teacher then can't access that work, but also it means that the student will have a missing piece of work and you as a parent will see that as missing work. But if they click the hand in button, you as a parent can see that they have then done that piece of homework. What you can also see down here is underneath that hand in button, you've got private comments. It could be that once a teacher has looked through the homework, they might want to refer a comment back to the student. They can do that privately, so only the student can actually see this, and that will appear just down here. So what we have here then is another view of Google Classroom. Now this just shows the to-do list. In order to access this to-do list, at the top here we have something called a burger. It's just 3 lines at the top. If you click on this burger, it brings a drop-down menu and it comes up with the to-do list. So here what you can have is assignments that have no due dates. That will be for any class resources, which I'll talk about a little bit later. You can then see, the students can see what work they've got during this week. So this student has got no pieces of work that's due for this week. In the next week column though, they do have a piece of work, and it gives, once again, it gives the date. So it's a recurring theme that it always makes sure the students know when the self-study is due and what time it's also due as well. And then if there's anything that's been set over a longer period of time, so it's not due this week, it's not due next week, it's actually maybe due maybe 2 to 3 weeks time, it will appear under the later bit. So this is what's been assigned. If students want to see if they've missed anything, they can click on the missing tab and it will do the exact same thing. It will go what's been missed this week, obviously it won't say what's been missed next week, but it will give them a running list of what's been currently is missing. And then the last tab that you have here is the done tab. So this will, any time a student presses hand in, when they go on their to-do list, that assignment will appear on the done section. So you as a parent, if you want to make sure that your child is doing their self-study, you can actually ask them to go on their to-do list, and you can really quickly and easily see what they got coming up, what maybe they might not have done, and actually what they have done. And there is another way that you can monitor that as well, which I will talk about a little bit later. One thing about Google Classroom that can be a little bit confusing for both parents and students is assignments versus materials. These are sort of the two main things that you as parents and our students will see on Google Classroom. So the difference between them, the first one is the little icon that you have. So if it's an assignment, you'll see sort of a little clipboard icon next to the post. If it's material, you'll see a book with what looks like a bookmark coming out the end. So that's the first sort of indicator of whether it's assignment or it's material. Now, if it's an assignment, we as teachers use that just to set self-study. And the reason why we use an assignment is because if it's a piece of self-study, or potentially for sort of years 9, 10, 11, it could be a piece of coursework that students need to hand in for their teacher. We set it as an assignment because students are able to press that hand in button students are able to press that hand in button because it needs to then be sent to the teacher. So any assignments are things that students have to complete and they need to be handed in. Now, why might we use something different for material? So what materials are used for is to upload any classwork materials, or it could be the lesson for the lesson presentation or a worksheet, for example. And we use materials because no action is actually needed by the student. It's not that they need to hand anything in, it's just that they can have access to those lessons. And that's really important, that we as teachers are uploading those lesson resources materials for students to either access if they're poorly for the day or poorly for the week. They can then, when they are feeling better, access that material and see what they have missed. But also when students come to revise for any assessments or exams they've got, they can go back and look through those lessons that they have done as a really good revision tool as well. Now, I mentioned about monitoring your child's self-study and how they are engaging with it. One way is that you can ask them to load up their Google Classroom and you can go via their to-do list. Or what you can do also is you are able to get something called a Guardian summary. So as a parent, you can receive a summary of your child's activities on Google Classroom. The summary will include the following things. It will include the missing work, so that's work that's not been turned in when that summary was sent. Any upcoming work, now that could be one of two things. Guardian summaries can come either every single day, and obviously they will tell you what work is due either that day or coming up for tomorrow. Or you can also get a much bigger summary, but you get it once a week. So for upcoming work on a weekly summary, that will tell you what's due for the upcoming week. It will also give you any class activities, so any announcements, all assignments, and any questions that have been recently posted by teachers. If that is something that you currently do not have and it was something that you would like to receive, all you need to do is check your emails for an invitation to become a guardian. That's especially for year 7 parents. If your child is in year 8 or from year 8, 9, 10 or 11, those guardian summaries were sent out when your child started with us at Wildern, and they only lasted for 120 days, meaning those invitations have probably now are no longer valid. So if you haven't received an email, or your child is in one of the older year groups and you would like to get these guardian summaries, if you could please email googleguardians@wildern.org. If you could state on that email your child's name, their tutor group, and the email address that you would like the summary to be sent to, we can reinstate those guardian summaries for you. When the invitation comes, all you need to do is just sign up to them via the email account that you've given, and you just need to decide if you would like them to be a daily summary or a weekly summary. At any stage, if you no longer want to receive those emails, all you need to do is unsubscribe from them, and that's able to be done at the bottom of every single summary that is given. Now, to give you an example of what a summary looks like, here you can see it's sort of broken down into 3 sections. You've got work missing from last week. This is an American example, hence why you can see it's got a lot of US history on it. So the first column, you can see you've got missing from last week, and it tells you the date it was due in. It then breaks down what the student has got due next week, so you can then have a conversation with your child and say, oh, actually, I've received this email and you've got this self-study coming up next week. Can I check that you've done it? It's a really nice way for you to monitor and have those conversations with your children about what self-study have they done, do they need any help, etc. And also you can see any class activity from last week, so that will be where all the assignments will also be posted, but also any questions or any class materials as well. So Google Classroom is sort of the main piece of EdTech software that we use outside of the classroom. There are, as I said, loads and loads of different things that can be used. I'm going to talk through sort of four main ones that can be used sort of across multiple different subjects that your child may have used, or potentially it could be something that they would like to use in the future. So the first one is Seneca. So Seneca is an online platform where students can take part in online lessons and complete tasks to review their knowledge. Now, when I say online lessons, I don't mean live lessons given by an adult. It's structured in a way that students can work through each topic in each lesson for all subjects. So Seneca is something that could be used for all subjects, and then once they've gone through part of a lesson, the software will then give them some tasks to complete and test their knowledge. So Seneca is a really fantastic piece of software that students can use outside of lessons, very independently across all subjects. It gives them points. They can then sign up with their friends. And us as teachers can also give self-study through there as well, and then they can get into competitions, which our students obviously are very, very keen to try and beat their friends. The next piece of software is Duolingo. Now, Duolingo is specifically very good for the language department. It's a web-based, it is also a mobile app as well, where students can practice a new language with written and also audio tasks. So Duolingo will give students the chance to practice their written language skills, but also gives them audio as well, so they can hear that language and help with their speaking exam and their listening exams as well. Two other pieces of software that our students are using both in and out of lessons as well is Coggle and Canva. So Coggle is an online mind map creator. Students can use these to create revision resources. They can use them in lessons, especially sort of I'm thinking English and history lessons, to plan sort of essays out. If they've got their Chromebook, they don't have to necessarily get a big piece of A3 paper out and sort of do a planning mind map. They could do one on Coggle, and then they've got that saved somewhere so they can refer back to it when they do their revision. And then the second piece of software is Canva. That is a piece of software, it's a web-based piece of software where students can create posters, presentations, and also videos. And a lot of our students use these mainly for posters, but also if they want to create videos. I'm thinking more sort of things like PE and dance and drama. If they want to sort of record themselves doing a specific piece for drama or dance, or if they want to video themselves making a specific skill, they can then go through the editing process and create sort of some really fantastic pieces of revision through Canva as well. So throughout this presentation, I've sort of gone through what EdTech is and how we use it at Wildern. I just want to finish the presentation with this quote, which I think is really poignant with what we've sort of had over the last couple of years. So we need technology in every classroom and in every student and teacher's hands, because it is the pen and paper of our time, and it is the lens through which we experience much of our world. I think we can all agree that over the last couple of years, the impact of technology has been huge across the world, and especially in education. And actually, we always, both teachers and you as parents, want the best out of our students at all times. And there are pieces of software being developed all the time that are helping these students to maximize their potential and get those best grades possible. And things are slowly starting to move away from that sort of pen and paper and moving towards those digital assessments and things like that. So I hope throughout this presentation that I've sort of shown you how we at Wildern are using EdTech, both in our classrooms and out of our classrooms. If you have any questions or any worries about the way that EdTech is being used, if you have any suggestions of how we could do better, I'd be more than happy for you to pass those on to me via my email, which is d.wormsley@wildern.org. Thank you very much for listening.